Today's talk is entitled The Eugenics Agenda and Science. So firstly, I'm gonna talk about science and how world leaders have manipulated the science world. And a classic of this is Adolf Hitler. And German scientists developed poisons. These were also developed in the First World War, mainly. You know, the mustard gas and things like that, to exterminate a population or race. Now, Hitler obviously didn't go to the chambers or the gas chambers and execute these people. People he was in control of did that. Now they did this out of a certain mindset, or I would say the majority did it out of fear for their own lives. And once you put somebody in that situation, it's a difficult situation. It wouldn't be a difficult situation for me. I'd choose death. But these minions, or who were Nazis, you know, maybe even some of the Jewish nation, were turning on these the gas chambers. And science has developed obviously these biological products of mass murder. This has not been developed by anyone other than the science world, and they're used in wars. The chemical companies make them, and they quite knowingly know where they come from, and obviously where they come from in terms of they make them, but obviously the uses as well. So it suits the eugenics movement. If you believe that there is a eugenics movement where the people believe that the world's overpopulated, we need to depopulate it, then we need these people would require a reduction in the population of the planet. That in themselves makes them insane, but or certainly lacking humanity. And so the purpose of this is, well, how do you get scientists to buy into this thinking? Because we can't say, oh well, you know, a chemical engineer, we're going to kill you if you don't produce this chemtrail that's going to exterminate many people. Or we're going to have a scientist who's developing an airborne chemical which is toxic. Now that scientist will obviously, under normal conditions, understand that it is a toxin. It's going to be placed in the air, and therefore there's risk to health. Now that is a normal thinking, functioning scientist with a mindset that can abstract think and link what he's developing to its use. You know, we want an airborne chemical. You know, this chemical is highly toxic. Why are we putting it in the air? And obviously that scientist is going to either through conscience say no, or for a need to pay his mortgage say yes. Depends on where he's coming from. But what I want to do now is cover the autistic scientist and what is going on with the eugenics movement, or as far as I would say, is manipulation of classification of autistic scientists to let these Asperger's scientists go under the radar. Now, it's no fault of theirs that they have Asperger's, the Asperger's syndrome. The Asperger's syndrome has certain criteria, which allows them to turn the gas chambers on. They can't abstract think. So, the eugenics movement and science. I was asked the other day, why would anyone spread? What are they doing with these chemtrails? Kind of question. Barium and aluminium. They're known to be toxin. People have collected samples of what's fallen from the sky. This does not normally appear in the Earth's atmosphere. Why are they doing this? Well, these chemicals have many effects on the body. But my response, and this is the crux of the video. I think science has become a deranged and requires mastery over nature's forces. The weather, mankind, and everything basically. Asperger's and mental health issues are driving the science world insane. They detach them from humanity. The scientist has become isolated, and the ego selfishness drives them into a type of psychosis, which actually delivers them far away from truth. The act of putting toxins into the atmosphere is madness. It's absolutely insane. Although people with Asperger's syndromes have difficulties socially, many of them have high above average intelligence. They excel in the fields of computer programming and science. Asperger's syndrome is often considered a high-functioning form of autism. It's not to be confused with HFA, which is more like the savant. It can lead to difficulty in interacting socially, clumsiness. But the crux of this now, these Asperger's scientists who are getting to the top, and people with mental health problems, that these Asperger's scientists who are undiagnosed do not express pressure at other people's happiness. They have no empathy. They cannot see the big picture. And so we have, just in those few statements, some of those are actually repeating autistic websites, is we have the mechanism now to turn the gas chambers on. In fact, we have the scientist capable. We have the scientist, Hitler's scientist, capable of producing these toxins, producing these biological weapons of mass destruction, of pollution of environments, because we have that mindset which is creeping into science, the science world. We don't have to now threaten them with death. We can just give them the job. We can give them the job to create these toxins in the atmosphere. So for anybody wanting to read about the problem with the Asperger's scientist, many of these are now creeping into mainstream science. They have a high intelligence. They can remember facts. They can pass their degrees. They have a problem in controlling their feelings. They lack empathy. Somebody's ill, oh yeah, whatever. Or we can understand or feel it through ourselves. Inability to abstract think. Oh, if we put this toxin into this airborne particle, will it kill people? They cannot take the abstraction to its logical conclusion. No, it's just my job, and I may get my doctorate by it. I can create it. I can create this thing that will kill thousands of people, but they could not think about it. This is not their problem. The problem is giving them jobs where they are manufacturing this type of product. So we have whoever is asking them to manufacture it, that is where the problem is. They would actually make very good scientists as long as you don't require them to think in abstract ways. As long as you don't expect them to consider, what poison in a water system of, say, Africa would do. You can't expect them to be that way. That is part of their mental health issues. So we can't go hating the Asperger's scientist just because he produces it. In fact, he's probably behaving more to his type than the person who does it out of fear. And, murders 300,000 Jews or whatever they do. Just because they're threatened with death. Because at least they know it's wrong. At least they know it's wrong. The people who are driving these things are obviously the ones who are absolutely insane. Here's another thing that somebody may want to read. Again, you can just get it from people with Asperger's syndromes have difficulty understanding what those think and feel around them. Because of this, they behave inappropriately in social situations and do things that may appear to be unkind and callous. But it's normal. The wife of one Asperger's man described his condition as causing extreme emotional indifference, which was neither voluntary nor deliberate. So they don't do it deliberately. But obviously, to give them science where you can put chemtrails up in the sky or biological warfare, products of biological warfare, they'll be able to develop them. There's no doubts about that. But what they won't be able to do is to think through the abstract as to what they're going to be used for. We got to design something to put in the water to kill people. Or they know that it's a toxin and they know that they're going to be putting it into water. They wouldn't sort of take that to its logical thing and say, oh, is this going to be used in war? It's not their fault. Not their fault. You can't blame them for it. It's just not their fault. So there's also another comment on that page. There'd also be a notable lack of common sense. Now, I'll give you a little indication of this. I know somebody with Asperger's who's a doctor. He was stripping wallpaper. He'd read all the books on how to strip wallpaper. Was telling me how to strip wallpaper. Whilst he hasn't. Another part of the syndrome is having to be right all the time. Never strip wallpaper. But read the books on it and every sort of manual and could regurgitate everything. And within 2 days he'd probably taken off maybe half a meter or a meter of wallpaper. Square meter. It was I was watching him and I just said, oh, give me the scraper. So I got a pot of hot water, fairly liquid, a little spray, scored the paper, took the scraper outside, sharpened the one edge, and stripped half the wall in about half an hour. And so that's an indication of the common sense that we're talking of. They can argue the point that they would know everything about it. And when it comes into practical application of it, it's just something that's been learned from a book. It's very strange, very strange. But you can't. This is part of their syndrome, so you can't really criticize that individual for having that way. What you have to do is have checks and balances for these people. You have to keep them in control. The people who are asking them to do the science, these are the ones we need to be looking at, not the mad scientist. And so we have a TV program called The Big Bang Theory, where there's a scientist called Sheldon Cooper. Although they suggest that he has OCD by the program writers, he shows the traits of Asperger's. In Asperger's there are certain classifications, and he fits the classification. So we have the Asperger's scientist. It's put forward in comedy, and been seeing, internet hackers, these Asperger's scientists, or Asperger's computer geeks hacked military, websites, looking for UFOs or whatever. Sheldon Cooper likes his Star Trek, and they're obsessive about things. So, but they do make good scientists. They may do poor science, and they may not think the implications of their science, but they certainly can be dedicated to that science. That single-mindedness that they have actually means that they can go through the minutiae that science requires. But what they cannot do is related to what does this science do for mankind. They are emotionally dead. And so one of the checks and balances that control Asperger's within science is now going to be deleted. And this is sinister. And I've had a prolonged discussion with the scientist over this, calling me a conspiracy nut or whatever. But Asperger's syndrome is going to be, and this is the particular one that the scientists come from, it's going to be declassified. It's not going to be classified as a mental health issue, or the Asperger's syndrome is going to be no more. So, Asperger's syndrome is to be dropped from the psychiatrist diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders. The American publication is the most influential references for the profession around the world. So the science world now is taking Asperger's out of it. As far as I'm concerned, this is very sinister. And if we have a look throughout time of historical figures who are considered autistic, we have Albert Einstein with his very strange idea that planets are formed by gravity. Newton with his gravitational laws as well. And this creates all sorts of problems for mankind. Here's a little quote of Newton's emotional singularities. His jealousy suggests a profound neurosis. And so we have these neurotic scientists who are telling us how the universe works without any common sense. I put a piece of that common sense to a physicist who heads a major educational establishment. He works analysing data for CERN, and I just put this simple thing to him. All atoms are bound together by, it's a strong and weak nuclear charge, but let's call it an electrical charge. Let's call it charge, just to keep it simple. All atoms are bound together by charge. All atoms are bound to each other by charge. So you take the idea of a whale, and that's all bound by charge. Skyscraper, bound by charge. All the atoms working, bound together by charge. So in the Big Bang, all these atoms are now being formed, and they're being bound together by charge, bound to each other by charge, creating huge masses of material, all together bound together by charge. And this is where Einstein got it absolutely wrong. All of a sudden, they form planets through gravity. And in fact, gravity is an effect of electromagnetism. Gravity doesn't exist until all these atoms are bound together by charge, and that mass itself creates the gravity. He put the the chicken and egg situation is always a difficult question anyway, but the electromagnetism creates charge, creates gravity, and it's wrong thinking. So I put this to the astrophysicist. The Big Bang, this did it, and you could see the man sort of go, "Hang on a moment, this is logical." And of course, autistic scientists can't think the logic. I'm not suggesting he was autistic. But you could then see his indoctrination kick in and say, "Oh no, this thinking is not right." I can reassure you that the gravity is an effect of electromagnetism, of the creation of mass itself. The creation of mass creates a warp in the electromagnetic field. Simple. And so we have these linear mechanistic model, and so what Einstein and Newton did is kill off what is the missing stuff from creation, which is called the ether. It's described as many things. That which God used the delimitation of the universe to set the creative tree force, or whatever you want to call it, in action. And so we have science being driven down whatever avenue the controlling elite want them to go down. They can deal with it with the lack of humanity that many of these autistic people suffer with. They're adamant they're right. And along with that, the fear of losing your jobs creates the science we have today. I'm not suggesting all scientists have been corrupted by the agenda, but these are the most vocal. They have to be right. This is part of the autistic problem. And so rather than having what the Greeks already knew, which was a biological, electrical universe driven by ether, we now have a gravity-based model which is driven by nothing other than gravity and the Big Bang, and no type of God force or creative force. So in this final image I'll show you the ether itself. There is the ether field. Many scientists will call it a lot of different things: the world tree, the cosmic tree. Sheldrake calls it morphic field and resonance. So there's a field of bioelectrical field, and what we got is photographs of leaves with them chopped off, and you still got them showing their electrical field, even though the tips of the leaves have taken off. And I've just added some of the research because people are following me mainly for the orbs. That what happens is that the orb, this is the classical view of ether, or the etheric force, attaches to trees and plants to regenerate that electrical field. That is the interaction of the ether to the etheric field of a plant or whatever. Even the Earth, we see it as the Aurora Borealis, or the Australis, Northern Lights. And so the Hermetica, which again the controlling elite know all about, the as above so below concept. And what we have is this final image is a picture of orbs taken in the sky, and a microscopic orb which is classed as a fibroblast, the thing that creates life. And so we have been driven Even Einstein and Newton showed signs of the ASD, or the autistic spectrum. Logical thinking, and we need to wise up to what our ancient ancestors knew. Goes on a bit, may not make much sense. There we go. Thank you very much for listening, all two of you. Goodbye.